When the first civilizations began building massive cities across Mesopotamia and Egypt, they developed monumental architecture, organized religion, and agriculture. To track these growing societies, they also developed the world's first writing systems. But early scripts, like the Sumerian cuneiform on this clay tablet, were incredibly difficult to master. The symbols are dense and grid-like, representing hundreds of distinct objects or concepts that required years of dedicated study to memorize. Egyptian hieroglyphs presented the same barrier. To read this carved cartouche, a scribe had to recognize thousands of unique, highly detailed pictographs, such as the specific anatomy of the bird seen here. In the Indus River Valley, writing was equally specialized. This script, appearing above the carved bull, remains unreadable today because its internal logic was known only to a small elite circle. Because of this extreme complexity, literacy was restricted to priests and kings. Writing functioned as a closed loop, used primarily to coordinate armies and manage royal estates, while leaving the majority of the population without any means of recording their own information. To find the moment that changed, we have to look away from grand architecture and toward a universal human problem: head lice. 3,500 years ago, a Canaanite used this double-sided comb to deal with pests. It was an ordinary, everyday tool. Scratched into the side of this weathered wood are 17 tiny marks. They form a sentence that happens to be the oldest known example of a writing system that would eventually replace the scripts of the god kings. This humble tool provides the physical evidence of the single most impactful shift in how humans communicate with one another. Around 3,500 years ago, the approach to writing shifted. In the region of Canaan, people began moving away from drawing a unique picture for every word, and instead assigned simple symbols to individual phonetic sounds. For example, the Canaanite word for ox was aleph. The detailed drawing of the animal's head was reduced to a few lines, becoming the abstract letter A. It was now a code for the first sound, ah. They applied the same logic to the word for house, or bet. The drawing of a floor plan became the symbol for the B sound. By combining these two phonetic marks, they could spell out Ab, the Canaanite word for father. This method is why we call this system the alphabet, named directly after those first two sounds, aleph and bet. This brings us back to the sentence on the lice comb. Because there were only a couple dozen sounds to learn, rather than thousands of complex pictures, the barrier to reading and writing vanished. This phonetic code allowed people outside of palace walls to document their own lives.
For the first time, a person picking lice out of their hair had access to the same technology as a king. This efficient system was carried across the ancient world by Phoenicians, the descendants of the Canaanites. The Phoenicians were master sailors. As they navigated ships like this wooden model across the Mediterranean, they used the alphabet to manage their trade, bringing the phonetic system to every port they visited. When the Greeks encountered these traders, they adopted the system to record their history and philosophy. This stone shows the result. The Greeks adapted the Phoenician letters into a rigid capital script that became the standard for recording the thoughts of their thinkers and lawmakers. This portability allowed the system to survive the Bronze Age collapse. While palace libraries containing the complex scripts of kings were burned and lost, the alphabet lived in the minds of merchants and sailors who continued to use it long after the old empires were gone. The Romans eventually standardized these letters into the Latin script seen here, the same rigid, uniform characters used across most of the world today. This standardized code remained the baseline of communication for centuries, waiting for a mechanism that could reproduce it faster than a human hand. That mechanism was Johannes Gutenberg's printing press. By casting individual Latin letters into metal blocks, Gutenberg turned the alphabet into a mass production tool. These dense columns of printed text represent a world where information could finally scale globally, fueling scientific and religious movements by making the written word available to millions. In the digital age, the logic remains exactly the same. Every email, text message, and line of code descends directly from that Canaanite phonetic system. The entire modern information age is built on the foundations laid 3,500 years ago by an ancient person simply trying to get the bugs out of their hair.